Welcome to this week's remote learning. This week, for the week beginning the 1st of June, as you can see, it's going to be based around the story Alone on the Hill that you looked at before half term. But this time, instead of completing comprehension activities, you are going to be creating some writing based upon the story. So please, if it's helpful to you, listen again to Miss Gwyneth reading the story. And there you can see, there's the story. But this week, what we're going to be doing is, we're going to be looking at writing tasks. So for the first lesson, you can see, it's writing description. What we're going to do is, I'm going to reread the description of the house from the short story for you, and then you're going to be having a go at writing your own description of the house using some techniques, hopefully things like personification that the author has used. So let's listen carefully, and I'm going to begin. The once magnificent house was now a ramshackle shell of its former glory. The paint was faded and peeling. Windows were covered in grime, and roof tiles lay scattered around the foundations. Shutters hung off the building at precarious angles. The wood panelling was cracked and coming away altogether in some places, the planks lying hidden in the tangle of vegetation below. The floorboards of the porch were rotten and, in some places, completely collapsed. The soldier was injured and alone, huddled over against the battering elements, unable to keep the enemy from advancing. The land was slowly reclaiming the once immaculate location. The neat and tidy flower beds were overgrown and choked by brambles. Branches from the surrounding trees crept in at night from the unmanned boundary, stretching skeletal fingers towards the centre of the clearing to cover the man-made cavity that had been left in its body. Weeds, ferns and saplings had invaded, trying desperately to claw back the ground which human hands had snatched from it long ago. So you can see that that description is using personification. And remember, personification is when human characteristics and qualities are given to something that isn't human. So you can see describing branches of trees as having fingers like a human being. That's a really good example of personification, and the clue is in the word. It's got person at the front of it. So what we want you to do now is to write your own description of this house after Morgan has cleaned it and done it up. So we want you to describe the same things that the writer is describing in the original and to use similar techniques, but obviously to use your own ideas and your own imaginations. And just like the original, your description should be about 2 paragraphs long. So here's an example. The original says, the paint was faded and peeling, windows covered in grime, and roof tiles lay scattered around the foundations. So if we were to rewrite that, but still make it very good descriptive writing, it could become something like, the paint was fresh and colourful. The clean glass in the windows sparkled, and the roof tiles were painted a vibrant red. So the really important thing to remember is that you're varying your vocabulary and that you're trying to use a range of descriptive techniques. So remember, that's things like personification, similes, metaphors, alliteration, and it should be 2 paragraphs long. So if there's anything not clear on any of that, please message your English teacher and ask him or her. Okay, so that's lesson 1. Now let's move on to lesson 2. Lesson 2 is on genre. Remember, genre means a style or a type or a category of literature. So we want you to think about the title, Alone on the Hill, and based upon that, what kind or type or genre of story might you expect that to be? So would it be scary, adventurous, romantic? So we're thinking about the genre, we're thinking about the category. And then what you're going to do, you're going to write the opening of a scary story called Alone on the Hill. So you're going to be writing the opening of another scary story with the same title. It could also be about a haunted house if you want, but it doesn't have to be. As long as the genre is horror, scary, it can be about anything that you like. So as long as it relates to the title, Alone on the Hill. And that opening should be at least a paragraph long. And here's an example of the opening sentence of a story, a scary story called Alone on the Hill. In the darkness, the shadowed door of the house gaped open like a waiting mouth. That's nice, that example, because it's using personification, as if the door has a mouth, like a human being. So you're going to do that first, and then you're going to write the opening of a different genre of story called Alone on the Hill. So you're going to write a second opening. The title will be the same, but the genre, the category, the type will be different. So it could be any genre of your choice. It could be comedy, romance, adventure, sci-fi, whichever you like. Think carefully about what you need to change to make this story different from your scary story, whilst also making sure that it still fits in with the title, Alone on the Hill. So here's an example of that. Sitting alone in the shade of the tall grass that grew on the top of the hill, she wondered if he was ever coming back. So that sounds like a romance, or even possibly a mystery, and it's about the person being alone. So it's a different genre, but it still fits in with our title of Alone on the Hill. So that's lesson 2. 2 separate paragraphs, separate openings of short stories, both titled Alone on the Hill, but both different genres. And that brings us to our final lesson for this week, and that's on structure. So, as you all know, this story contains a big turning point, and that's when the character Morgan appears, when everything changes for the house. So what you're going to do is, you're going to write your own short story with a really important turning point. And the turning point is going to be the arrival of a character changes everything, just like the arrival of Morgan changed everything in the original story Alone on the Hill. It should be about 3 paragraphs, this story, and you can use one of these ideas that I'm going to talk you through, or probably better if you make up your own. So this is just if you need a prompt, or you've got a bit stuck, or you're not sure. It doesn't mean that you have to do one of these 3 ideas. It would be better to have your own idea. So here we go. It could be a football team is losing really badly until a certain player, the star player, is substituted on, and then there's a change of fortune. So that's the first one. Or number 2, a robbery is going really well until the detective arrives, and again that's a big turning point. Everything changes. Or how about number 3, some children are having a really wild party until one of the parents arrives, and then it all changes. So those are 3 examples of really significant turning points. But as I said, if you want to make up your own, that's absolutely great. That's a really good thing to do. Okay, so I hope that that's really clear. If there's anything that isn't clear, please contact your English teacher and ask them for help. And that's it really. Good luck. I hope it goes well. Happy writing.